A man at the center of one of Lexington's most high-profile cases is facing new charges. Shane Ragland is accused of assaulting his mother and his mother's friend. He faces charges of assault and terroristic threatening. During his arraignment today, Ragland pled not guilty. Court records state that Ragland ran over both women with his motorized wheelchair and threatened to kill them. Records also show Ragland's mom filed a protective order against him. He's due back in court on July 16th for a pretrial conference. Ragland was previously convicted of the murder in 1994 of UK football player Trent DeJuro. That conviction was overturned. He would later plead guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter.
Danville